Hi, my name is Glenn Lucas and I've been a wood turner here in County Carlow for the last 30 years. Today I'd like to show you how to make a salad bowl, starting off with a wet piece of wood from a tree and taking it through to a finished piece that we can serve on our table. So join me as I take you through the process. Today's project is this salad bowl, and it's made from native Irish ash. The wood that I like to work with normally would be medium density hardwoods, and in Ireland that would be beech, ash, sycamore. And one of the issues that we have with the ash tree is that 90% of our ash will be gone within the next couple of years from ash dieback disease. So for me it's a great opportunity to give some of this wood a new life, and it'll be around for many, many years to come. So the first thing that I need to do is cut out a piece of wood with the chainsaw, and the piece of wood is going to be completely wet, so I'll have to rough shape it after cutting it out. I'll rough shape it on the lathe so that I can dry it within an 8-week period. If I was to leave it as one solid chunk, it would most likely crack rather than dry. And then when the piece is dry, which normally takes 8 weeks, and I have one that I prepared earlier, I'll bring it into the workshop, put it on the lathe, and then finish it off, getting it really silk smooth, putting on the oil, and then it will be used for serving food after that. The first thing I'm going to do is explain where this bowl came from in the tree. And if you look at the end of this log, it's full of cracks. And many people who don't know a lot about working with wood or wood turning assume because you've got a circle there that all you need to do is cut off a ring and your bowl is already the same shape as the log here. But actually the bowl comes from a board, and I will be getting a bowl each side of this crack, so one over here and then one over here on the other side, cutting off the center and then the bark on the outside to reveal the bowl blank within. So the first step here is to remove 10 centimeters of the end of this log to get rid of all of these cracks, and I need to start up the chainsaw to do that. So I'm just checking the length of this piece, and I've just cut it a little bit oversized to allow for the fact that this is going to change shape as it dries out and warp. Looking at it here from the end, I can see that now I only have one crack, and if you remember from the outside surface, it was just full of cracks. So in marking out my bowl here, I'm going to just try and keep away from this main crack here. So if we just mark a straight line down there, the thickness of my bowl with a little bit of extra waste will be about 12 centimeters. And just mark it there, and then continue that line. And I normally stay away from this bark area here because the bark has been missing. It's likely to have some cracks in on that surface, so I'll keep away from that, and most of the nice color will be in here closer to the center. Over on the other side, I'll get another bowl here as well, So I can cut out two beautiful pieces from this. Again, mark in 12 centimeters. And the next thing I'll do is just pick up the chainsaw again and cut off the waste. This also will be waste right here in the center. All of that will be used to heat our building. But at some point I can get something nice in this area here, like serving spoons or perhaps a pepper mill or something else I can use. Okay, so let's get the chainsaw and we'll cut that again. I'm just going to get rid of this center piece here for the moment and have a look at the pieces that I've cut up. The center of this piece has a really beautiful brown heart. If I just lift it up there for a second, you can see close to what was called the pith, the very core of the tree, has this brown heart here. So my plan is to make this is the rim of the bowl and this area here the bottom. So when we look down inside the bowl, we'll see this beautiful brown area coming all the way through. So let's take them inside and we'll cut them into a circle on the bandsaw. So the next thing I have to do is just mark them out with the compass, making a circle. And I have to decide which side to mark the circle on. And I just want to keep the brown heart here to the very, very bottom. So I'm going to turn it upside down. I'll set the compass to 15 centimeters. Then place the compass within the bark. So I have about an even amount here, both sides. And just check that I can make the full circle there. Push in because I'm going to need that center mark and then complete the circle. So now I'm going to take it to the bandsaw and cut out my circle. next step is to find a way of attaching this piece of wood to the lathe, and for that I'm going to use this here. It's called a faceplate. So that sits on top, and then I use 4 wood screws to hold it in place. So the next step is to screw it onto the lathe so it's held securely. Give it a little lock up so when I press the stop switch it won't unscrew. This is called the tool rest, and that'll hold the tools when I'm shaping the piece of wood. And I'll just check that it's not touching. And all I need to do now before I start is to sharpen the tools. So now that I have the tool sharp, I'm ready to start rough shaping this piece. And the reason that I rough shape it is that I can dry a rough shape bowl very, very quickly. So I'm not looking for a good finish at this point because it has to go through the full drying process, which will take possibly 8 weeks. But if you look at this piece, after it's dried, it's gone completely oval. And then I have to remount this dry piece on the lathe to get it into a circle again and then polish it up before it's finished. So let's get this piece shaped, and we'll start by doing the outside, then we'll reverse it around and hollow out the inside. So this is the part that I like. I'm going to stop here for a quick second and just have a look. So I need to make the base a little smaller. Normally on a finished salad bowl, the base is 1/3 of the overall width, and that means it's wide enough that it'll sit stable on the table. There's still a few ridges in it. It doesn't really matter at this stage, but I want it to look a little bit more refined before starting the drying process. The less wood in the bowl that I have to dry, the more chances it'll dry without cracking. So I'll bring the rest a little closer, and off I go again. That's looking good. And just one more thing I have to do is level off the bottom here. So I'll bring the tool rest around, check that the wood is not touching the tool rest, and flatten the base. This little foot here at the bottom is called the spigot, and I'm going to use the spigot to hold this in the chuck when I'm hollowing out the inside. So the first thing I need to do is pick up the chuck that I'm going to use and take a measurement from the inside. Then I'll just place it up against the bottom, and it actually is pretty much the right size. I'm going to make a tiny little mark on it. I have another tool here that I'm going to use to get it to exactly the right shape. So that's the outside roughly shaped. All I need to do now is take it off the lathe, attach the chuck, and hollow out the inside. So just remove these screws. And now I just place the piece into the chuck. Okay, just lock it up good and tight. I can bring the tool rest back in front, check that it's not touching, and I'm ready now to start hollowing that out. Just stop the lathe for a moment, get rid of those shavings, and bring the rest in a little bit closer. I'm going to bring the tool rest in a little bit closer now because I'm getting an overhang of the tool and it can start to vibrate if I'm not careful. The wall thickness, I'm going to leave it roughly 10% of the overall width because as the wood dries out, it shrinks by about 8% across the grain. So from bark side to bark side, this would have been the top of the tree and this possibly the bottom side of the tree. So it will move in this direction. So that'll leave me enough wood to get this piece into a circle again when it dries out. I'm just going to check and see if this is the right wall thickness, and it feels pretty good in that the wall thickness is even the whole way to the bottom. If it was left a little heavy on the bottom, that unevenness in thickness can cause it to crack. So now what I'll do is I'll put this piece to one side and then place it into my wood dryer along with many other bowls, and it'll dry over the next 8 weeks. But in the meantime, I have another piece here that's dry and ready to be finished off. I just need to remove the chuck from the lathe now and put on some other attachments. So this is what's called a bowl reversing plate. So the bowl that I'm putting back on the lathe is no longer round, so I have to find a secure way to hold it so that it doesn't move as I'm turning it. I need to just move these out of the way for a second, sweep down the lathe bed, and put the tailstock in place. This here is called the lathe center. Put that securely in place. And now I need to center the rim of the bowl on top of this disc. So I'm going to do this just using my hands first of all to center it so that I feel an equal overhang over both sides. Next I have to bring in the tailstock to just hold it gently in place to start with. And I put the tool rest up against it and just spin it carefully by hand just to make sure I have the same distance both sides. And it's looking pretty good. Small little adjustment. And I think we're ready then to go. Okay, so we got an equal overhang all the way around. Now I'll tighten everything so it's held securely. And bring in the tool rest. And I'm ready to start finishing this piece. Now that I have the piece mounted on the lathe, I'm going to put on this respirator which will not only protect my face but it'll protect my lungs as well. Because we're working with wood that's very, very dry, there's going to be a lot of dry dust coming off this. So before I start, I'm going to check that the speed is okay. I'll stand to one side and just switch on the machine and slowly bring up the speed. I'll get it to about 800 or 900 RPM and then I'm ready to start turning. I've just taken a rough cut here to get the piece back into a perfect circle again, which I've achieved. And now I just have to get it really smooth before sanding. So I'm going to put this tool away and move to one that's just a little bit smaller and a little bit sharper for the fine cuts. So putting my respirator back on one more time. I'm really pleased with the surface finish, and all I have to do now is reshape the spigot at the bottom, and this time I'm going to work with a slightly smaller chuck because the finished piece is going to have a smaller base. That's the outside finish for the moment. I just have to switch it around and then finish the inside. So the first step of doing the inside is to level up the rim and create the rim shape that appeals to me. When I'm working on the rim of this bowl and hollowing out the inside to the final wall thickness, it's important that it has the right weight and it feels good in my hands. So take this bowl in my hands, for example. If I turn that around, you can see that here I have half a bowl, and look at how my thumb just fits into the bowl there. The rim of it sits neatly into my hands. It's very, very comfortable. And because it gets a little thinner as I get towards the bottom, it's very, very easy to hold this bowl when it's full of food and carry it to the table. So my aim, first of all, is to work on the rim and then finish the inside to the final thickness. At the very, very end, I'll be getting rid of this little foot at the bottom. It's called the tenon. I'll turn that away so I'm left with a flat base. Now that the rim is finished, I'm going to start working on the inside of the bowl. And it's important as the bowl gets thinner that I don't do any more work with the rim, because I'm likely to get vibration when the wall thickness is thinner behind it. I have the piece roughly shaped now on the inside. I'm going to pick up some finer tools so I get a really smooth surface before sanding. I'm going to stop there for just a second and check the wall thickness before removing any more wood. So here I have a calipers, and it's going to tell me on this end exactly how much wood I have there as I'm making the cut around the bottom. So at this point on the bowl I have about 10 millimeters, and I would be happy if I have it about 8 millimeters. That would be just the right amount of material. I'm happy now with how the bowl feels. I just have to change the position of this tool rest, bring it in a little closer, and I'm switching tools for the last cuts across the bottom. You just feel that at the bottom, and it's got a nice flowing curve all the way around. So at this point we're ready for sanding. I'm going to sand the bowl next, and I'm using electric drills both for the inside and outside with these Velcro sanding pads. So on the outside I use, it's called a right angle drill, which will reach around the back of the bowl. And on the inside I use a regular variable speed drill. I've selected all the right grits, so starting with 100 grit, which is the coarsest, all the way through to the finest 320 grit, I'll be left with a really smooth finish before applying the oil. So we're all set now. Just put on my respirator and we're ready to go. This is my favorite part of making a bowl, where it comes to life when I apply the oil. The oil finish that I use is a food safe finish, so we can serve salads in it or serve fruit in the finished piece. So I'll just dip the cloth in and just with a circular motion apply the oil. And you can see the way the grain starts to pop. So over the years of using a bowl, you may need to apply more oil because it does start to dry out a little bit over time. So something like a beeswax on top of the finish that we're putting on now can work quite well. And when you're making a salad at home, the important thing is with the bowl afterwards is to wipe with a damp cloth, but don't put the bowl sitting in a basin of water. And after you wipe it with a damp cloth, just dry off the water so it's not left to dry naturally, and you'll be left with a bowl that lasts many, many years. And I'm just going to start the lathe now really slowly and burnish the finish into it. And that's it. That really looks great. And you can see the way the beautiful growth rings are coming through on the final piece. The last thing we have to do here is remove the foot at the bottom before applying the finish down there and signing my name. I have a special chuck on the lathe now which will hold the bowl by the rim for removing this foot at the bottom. So let's just put this in place. And what's good about this is it won't leave any marks and the person won't see how it was originally held on the machine. I can tell by the sound pretty much how much wood is left there at the bottom. So at this point, there's less than 8 millimeters left. And all I need to do now is sand it, put on the oil, and then sign it. That looks good. Now just the oil. We'll just wipe off some of that dust that has gathered around the top, and that is the finished piece. So the last thing is to put my name at the bottom and the type of wood. So I just have to have this pyrography pen exactly at the right temperature so it doesn't burn too deeply into the wood. Start with my name. I use this like I'm using a fountain pen, so not too much pressure. Just rotate it slightly. Ireland. And the wood is ash. And finally the year. I'm really happy to give this ash tree a new life as a bowl, and if it's treated with care, it'll be around for many generations to come. I'd like to say thank you for watching, and all I have to do now is find a new home for this wonderful piece.